Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Zone, the podcast I have once in a while, but it's always a special occasion when I do so. And my guest today is Ruxin, a YouTuber known for his pack openings, card gradings, and buying collections. Wowee. He joined YouTube in late 2017 and has over 200k subscribers. It's more attack points than a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Wow. So how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I feel like I have a lot of attack points right now, so I'm totally ready to go. I'm ready to blow up anything in my path, except maybe Exodia. So, Exodia, stay out of this.
Got that Mega Morph equipped and roaring to go. First off, thank you
Yeah.
for being on here. Actually, one of my patrons reached out to me and suggested you to be on this podcast. So, you know who you are. Shoutouts to you. Finally got this going and
Great
super excited
suggestion,
about it.
in my opinion. Great suggestion.
Hey, anytime someone comes out to me and says like, "Hey, would you do a collaboration with this guy?" My response is always, "Sure." I mean, if the other person's open to it and there's something interesting to come out of it, I'm always open. Whether it will happen or not is another question. But yeah, I'm certainly
We
not one
did make
to.
this happen. It might have taken a while. I mean, the viewers won't know this because you guys weren't around for the planning process, but we made it happen. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, it was a for those who don't know some behind the scenes stuff. It was a bit over a month of trying to plan this to happen. And there are at times I'll be real. I didn't think it was gonna happen. I thought like something would occur, but what actually
Yeah.
happened was, well, now you're watching it, and I think that's a pretty good thing.
Yes. So what actually happened was we are here. So
Yes.
yeah, that's all you really need to know.
Yes. So I did want to start by asking you. So you started your channel in late 2017, which in like the YouTube space is kind of late, but better late than never. Uh,
Yes.
So,
Yes.
what made you decide to start a YouTube channel, and why was your focus on Yu-Gi-Oh?
That is a great question. I can answer the second question a lot better than the first question because I don't even really remember why I started the channel, or what made me want to. I'm guessing it was just because I was watching other YouTubers and I'm like, that's pretty cool. Let me give it a try. But I can't really remember exactly. It was kind of a casual thing, so it wasn't like a committed like I'm gonna become like a YouTuber or whatever, which somehow happened. But the second question is why was it Yu-Gi-Oh related? So I had been watching a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh YouTubers. So I watched a lot of card openings and stuff like that. I was in my master's program in college, so a lot of my friends had left because I was there for a fifth year because it was a like a master's thing. So they were all gone. So I'm looking around like, what am I gonna do around here? I had a part-time job, but I'm like, there's still a lot of time in the day like with this. So I started watching YouTube. I start thinking, this looks like a lot of fun. I had been playing Duel Links, which is actually what I started posting on my channel, which was the mobile game for Yu-Gi-Oh. So I played that a bunch, and I'm like, man, this is a lot of fun. I remember Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day. This is like really cool, and I still love Duel Links because it was the 3 card version of Yu-Gi-Oh. Super short, super simple. You could play a duel in like 5 to 10 minutes. You could just play it on your phone, and it was super great. And I still like it, but there's a lot. It's got all the new cards now, but early on, it was so much like old Yu-Gi-Oh. It was so simple. It was like summon your guy, put down your trap card, attack, whatever. So it just brought me back to the old days. So that kind of brought me back into Yu-Gi-Oh. And then I realized, hey, there are like still cards out that people buy and sell and stuff, and I could go to Walmart right now and buy them. So I did, and that's basically where it started for the card stuff.
So, what had you? Was that specific moment like the catalyst for making you change from Duel Links to card openings, or was it something more with Duel Links that eventually you're like, all right, I definitely prefer doing more on like the physical stuff?
So I did over 100 Duel Links videos, and they were terrible. So like I had just watched some other people that did Duel Links, and I'm like, I could make like a funny deck and like play with it. And the content wasn't good, but I made 100 videos, so it was like kind of good to figure out how like uploading works, how to like sort of edit because I was sort of editing. I was throwing in terrible intros that were like super loud, like blow your eardrums out as soon as you like turned on the video. So there was all kinds of awful things at the beginning that I learned that you should or should not do, and in that case, you probably shouldn't put those in there. Well, the card thing, I had just been watching on YouTube both Duel Links and card openings. And once I saw card openings, I'm like, well, I'm gonna open these cards anyway. Like I could just record it and post it. So I'm like, might as well do that. So I did that like intermittently with the Duel Links stuff at first, and then I'm like, at one point I got a little burned out by Duel Links because I'd just done so much of it like a few months. So I'm like, let's take a break from that. And then I started posting a couple of card openings like for the channel because I just felt like, oh, I want to have some more content on here. Let's just see how this card stuff does. And I remember I had like 200 subscribers from Duel Links, so it was like not a whole lot or anything like that. But there was this specific guy that was so mad that I was posting card openings. It was so funny. He's like, "Are you serious? Like, why are you posting this? I'm unsubscribing or something." I was like, "Oh no! Why? Well, what of my 200? You know, because that's a big deal. You know, it's a big percentage. Like, almost 1% of my subscribers were so mad." So I specifically remember that. So yeah, that I just hopped into the card openings. So I got a little burned out on Duel Links, and I'd been opening stuff, wanted to try it, and I'd seen a lot of other people doing it as well.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's good to have like diehard fans at that early on. You know, the general
Yeah.
census is like, all right, you make your first 100 videos. Those are usually going to be the bad ones, and you want to find your 1,000 like core audience rather than a million of like nobodies. At least that's what YouTube gurus tend to say. I don't know. So like let's talk about the pack openings a bit. So like what do you think separates your pack openings from other channels? Because pack openings is a kind of content that a lot of people do and like can do rather easily.
Yeah. What separates it? That's a great question. Now, it might be better to ask my subscribers for that. Like, why do they like me versus somebody else that doesn't? I try to have consistent content is what I try to do. I try to do daily. Well, I do daily content ever since 2021. We've done a video every single day. So I try to post something every single day. So because pack opening doesn't necessarily take skill to do, like everybody can open a pack. There is, I will say, some people are worse at it than others. You know, sometimes you could see a pack and be like, I can't even see what's going on here. Like, can you just like keep it on the screen for a second? So there is a little bit that you like get used to. It's not necessarily a skill. It's just sort of like having done it a lot. But then the real thing is it's not that hard to do. You just opening packs, right? So I try to provide a lot of different content every day so people can come back like, oh, I actually liked watching that opening video. Let me see if there's one tomorrow. And there usually is, unless it's like some sort of Master Duel video, which we do a couple of. But I like to be available for people to watch. And then I also like to just try to change things up a little bit, you know, do certain mixes of packs, certain themes that we're doing, and maybe different weeks. Like sometimes I like to do spooky week during Halloween, and we do open a bunch of ghost rare packs, or just little ideas that keep it where it's not just generic opening so that people are interested in what's coming next. Maybe have some big subscriber goals so people are excited about big openings we're going to do. And then, of course, I've always been in on the big opening. So I've spent a lot of money like opening big stuff and stuff like that so that people are like, oh, we can see the vintage stuff on Ruxin's channel. So that's kind of the stuff I try to do to keep people interested. But, you know, I guess it is up to whoever's watching to what they like.
Yeah, and I have to ask, how do you buy all these lovely toys? Like when someone looks at a lot of these boxes, especially a lot of retro products, things can get pricey really fast. So it takes some high level of dedication to really go in the deep end on this type of like collecting side of things.
Well, that's a good question. A lot of people ask me this all the time, and it's really hard to understand just if you just see like one video and you're like, how did he spend, you know, a few $1,000s on this one box, right? And it's like he must be like rich or whatever. Well, I'm not rich, I would say. I early on, especially, I had like nothing because I wasn't making any like hardly anything on YouTube at first. But I've always bought and sold stuff. So that's kind of been like the side business of the business, which is actually like probably even more of the business than the YouTube stuff is a lot of the time. I'm always buying and selling stuff. And I do that on my website. And I've used to do it on Instagram. That's where I first started. I'd buy a collection. Somebody would want to sell a bunch of cheap cards, you know, for like, or they wouldn't be too expensive, like couple dollar cards. They'd sell it for like $100 or something. And I would go through and I would list every single thing on my Instagram. And then I eventually started doing TCG Player where I could list that lower end stuff. And I would try to make that $100 turn into $200 or into $300 or whatever I could do. And I just kept building up more inventory to like buy and sell and buy and sell and buy and sell. And that way slowly make some money doing that. And once I got that money, I would put that into like a vintage box opening or something like that. And then I started doing the box breaks. So that makes it a lot easier. So I could like buy the box and then I sell it to fans of the channel. And I end up making like a tiny profit, but I also get the video and I get to do the box break and stuff like that. So that makes it a lot easier when you can do that kind of stuff. When I was first doing it and opening it for myself, it was really, really hard because you're taking like a couple $1,000 box or whatever it was. You're opening it, which sometimes more than that with like the LOB box. And if you don't pull anything, you're just out $2,000 or whatever. So sometimes that would happen. And then you're just set back for so long. So it's just a long grind. It's since I have been since 2017, I guess 2018 is actually when I started doing the selling stuff. So I actually did more selling than YouTube back then. So I've been building up stuff ever since then and kind of like slowly growing the collection of stuff to buy and sell. And having that in the background is really what makes it possible to keep buying stuff because I couldn't just buy these big boxes and open them and then just be like, all right, I'm done. Like I just couldn't afford to do it. So I have to have the background business of selling stuff all the time, basically, to actually do it.
Yeah, and that's good for people at home who maybe want to get into this side of either just Yu-Gi-Oh or content creation that just watch videos on YouTube and think, oh, let me just dump thousands of dollars into these boxes and kind of just like leave it as that. Then next thing you know, they're in the red. Maybe they're not doing the views they wanted, and it's not really a good day for anyone. Because I'm sure buying a lot of these boxes and collections that I'm sure sometimes they can be a large blunder, right? Where maybe you're not getting those pulls you wanted. Like how often does that happen where you kind of either get what you want or get what you don't want? Like what's kind of the ratio there?
Ooh, it's hard to say because the grading factor comes in with vintage. Like if you're opening a vintage box and you may or may not get the best card, and if you do get the best card, it could get a 9 or a 10, and that's a big difference, like, or maybe even an 8 on what your value is back. So there's a lot of randomness with that as well. So the good side is, for me at least, when I first did my first massive, like I did some big openings, but it was cheaper back before COVID. Right before COVID, I did the Legend of Blue Eyes first edition opening. Even before the COVID spike, it was $6,800. I remember spending that. I was sitting with my wife at like a church thing, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm about to spend $6,800." And she looks over, she's like, "All right." And so I sent it like on PayPal, and we were both like, "Oh." So then I got it back, and I did the opening, and I pulled like an amazing, like actually a pretty good box. But even after grading, I didn't make my money back until the commons and rares from the set ended up grading months and months later. And then I was able to sell those during the COVID spike to actually make my money back. So I took a big L, but luckily that video ended up spiking and like blowing up my channel. So it kind of worked out, but like if it didn't spike my channel, it probably wouldn't have been worth it. But so you just don't really know. Like the percentages are always pretty low that you're going to like make your money back on a box opening. So it can be really tough.
Yeah, I mean it's good to have a wife that's like supportive of rather an expensive hobby because I tell you I'm on eBay, a lot of products I would like to buy. It's like I can't justify paying even like $1,000 on some things like this thing. I was able to purchase other things.
That thing's cool.
Oh, it's super cool. I like standees. I wish I could afford more. But one thing that I mentioned before that you also buy like people's collections. What would you say are certain things you look at when people sell collections? Like, do they are you looking for like a certain price, certain cards, or like their sellers you tend to buy from that kind of give you more like collections? Like, what's the criteria for that?
It depends on what I currently have happening because sometimes I'm just swamped with like multiple collections. So I'll just be like, basically anything's a no unless it's like an insane collection. And then even nowadays, I'm trying to not buy as many loose card collections just because they take so much time because you have to condition every single card and then price every single card and do all that different stuff. Versus graded cards, it's so much easier because you have the number on there. So you just look up the price. It's like that simple. So it takes a lot less time to do that. Like if somebody just sends me a binder full of cards and it's like 500 cards and you're conditioning and pricing every single one, that takes days to just do. So I'm trying to stick with sealed product and PSA cards for the most part, unless it's like a really crazy like old collection for single cards these days. Back in the day, I would take anything. Like before I couldn't be picky back then. It was like oh, that looks like it's a pretty decent deal. Let me go for it, and I have nothing else to sell right now, so let's just grab it. But now that I have other things that I'm selling, it's like I just don't have the time to pick that kind of stuff up. So I'm a little bit more picky now. Back in the day, I just say, could I make a little bit of money on this, buying this? All right, I'll do it. So then I'll just take it. So it's definitely changed since I first started.
Have there been times where you've bought like a large collection and it is just nothing is in there, like it's all garbage?
Well, luckily, so what I started doing, because that would happen, you'd buy something and you'd spend a bunch of money and it's like everything's in terrible condition, or you think there was this car, but it actually wasn't. And that could just be a disaster. Like you take a huge L, you have all this work, you're going to lose money. And that's just horrible. So what I started doing when I kind of grew my reputation on YouTube is I'd say, you send me the collection, I'll look at it, make sure I want it. Cause they'll send me some previews and I'm like, I think I want it. But before we like agree on any price, I'm not going to send any money. You send it to me. I'll look at it. I'll price it out and I'll tell you what I can offer you. So that's what I do now. And then if they're like, no, it's too low, I send it back. If they are like, okay, sounds good, then we go through with the transaction. So I kind of avoid all the heartache of like, I'm going to get like basically scammed by buying this. And most people, like 95% of people are super cool with doing that because they've seen my channel, they watch me, they like, all right, he's not going to scam me or anything like that. There's always the 5% that are like, oh, wait, what? You're not going to pay me? I'm going to send it to you? And I'm like, hey, look, if it's a problem, just don't send it to me. It's like, it's no problem. Like I've got some other ones I can work with. And usually they're either like, okay, I won't send it to you, or they're like, okay, sure. Like I'll send it to you. And then we like work it out or whatever. So like I'd say like 95% are just send it and it's cool. And then another 95% when I get it, it works out. So occasionally we'll be like, we can't come to an agreement and I just ship it back. But almost all the time it works out pretty well.
That's good. It works out for you. It works out for typically all parties involved. On like the other end of things, have people sent you collections and you see like a really rare card that they have no idea that's in there? Like if there's a TP2 morphing jar just kind of like hanging in the back there, is that something you'll be like, hey, let me be real to you, this card's really expensive? Or are you more of like, all right, please just sell me this product for the price you're giving?
Well, usually what happens is I don't even really ask them for a price, because I'm like 90% of the time their price is going to be off for some reason or another. Like they looked up the wrong card or something like that, or they misunderstood something and they just have some crazy price. So I don't even ask for the price at the beginning. I get the thing, I go through everything and I price it myself. And I'm like, here's the total price. I can give you a percentage of that. And here's what it would be. Here's what I'm offering you. And I do that. So that way there's never really like oh, you're giving me this morphine jar for $50. I'll take it. That doesn't really happen, because most of the time people aren't really offering me a price. I'm just offering them the price based on the market price. So it doesn't really happen, though. I know a lot of people like dream of that. It's like, oh, give me the collection, which it can definitely happen. But I also would feel kind of bad if I was like, it's like, that's a $2,000 card I just bought for $50. You know what I mean? So it's like, especially if like I kind of do it where I'm going to give you a percentage of the total so I can make money. And that way everybody wins. So it's like, I'm not going to try to take it for 1%. You know what I mean? Because I'm already getting like, I have my little margin I've built in that, which there always is some risk with like lost packages that you got to remember. There's always risk for cards changing price and stuff like that. But as long as it stays the same price, like I'm going to be okay. So I don't need to like offer you 1% or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it helps that you treat it more like a business than just an individual buying a card. A lot of card shops, they're, or really any shops, you sell something to them, right? You're not going to get full value for that because they need to, make some money and have upkeep and resale value and X, Y, and Z, and all that stuff is very important, especially for someone like you who's a bigger Yugi tuber on like the online space, to really kind of like champion good practices like that. I think is like really important. So that said, like, what would you say is like your largest gain, like with all these products that you've like obtained, like whether it's like individual cards or just like a specific piece that you're like, I have to have this?
Gain in terms of like a buy and a sell, or like in terms of like I bought it and I have it, or just like something I'm happy to have?
Let's say in a monetary sense, but also your favorite piece.
Okay. That's actually a tough question. It would have to be something that I had before COVID and then it went up because a lot of the stuff I had before COVID were like in the hundreds of dollars in PSA. And then I'd say some of the big stuff was like, I remember Beast Skull Dragon went up like, or like 4 times the price. It was like 400%. Because I think I had a PSA 10 and it was like maybe $1,000 or something. And then I sold like 3 of those during COVID for like 4 to 5 thousand. Like they went insane for how
Man.
expensive those were. And for some reason, I kept ending up getting them. Like I pulled one that I kept for my collection, and then I ended up getting a couple more graded. And so I kept selling those. I'm like, well, I don't need 2 of them. So I'm like, well, it's like $4,000. I'm going to sell it. So I did that. So those went up a crazy amount. There were some other PSA cards. Well, actually, I should say the Black Rose Dragon, I think I got in a collection raw. I graded it a 9 the first time at PSA. And I'm like, how did this get a 9? Like, this thing looked really good. So then, like, 2 or 3 years later, I'm like, let's try it again. So I cracked it out. I finally actually, I didn't crack it out. I got my friend Vintage Yu-Gi-Oh to crack it out for me because that was before I was cracking cards. I was like, I'm too scared. Because it's like, when you watch somebody crack a card, it's sketchy. You're like, I'm going to break this thing in half. Well, he got it out for me. And I sent it back in and it got a 10. So it was a Ghost Rare first edition. When I first got it, it was probably worth $1,000, maybe even less, because I bought that collection so long ago. It might have even been under 1,000. Then I graded a 9. It was like 4,000 in a 9 at that point, which was still crazy.
Whoa.
And I thought about selling it because it was so much money. Well, then it got a 10, and it was worth $15,000. So that's got to be it. That's got to be it. So then I sold that card because actually it was like one of my first years as like a business. And then I'm like, oh, you have to like save your taxes on the side, which I found out. And they're like, yeah, you owe a lot of money. So I'm like, I guess I'm selling this card. So I sold it. And I'm like, luckily that thing got a 10 because then I got $15,000 out of it, which was insane. Like, I mean, it went from probably 1,000. So probably, yeah, that's got to be like my biggest, like in terms of just a big number. Like that was like a $14,000 gain or something. So yeah, Black Rose Dragon first edition. And that was like a yearly. I think I got it probably before COVID. I don't remember. It was a few years between like grading it and selling it and all that different stuff.
That's absolutely wild. I'm sure getting a lot of those like PSA graded cards back is like, especially when it's like a 9 or 10, must be like a Christmas morning type of deal. Do you typically like agree with all the gradings that you get? Like other times you got a card back and it's like a PSA like 6 or 7 and you think, no, this should be 1 to 2 points higher. Like how accurate do you find the process to be?
It's definitely not 100% accurate. I've had my fair share of videos where like, what is happening today? Like everything. And it feels like it depends on who you get. And like certain times you're like, this guy seems pretty good, whoever was grading this. Or this feels a little bit off today. Like I'm getting so many 9s or like so many 8s and it feels like really harsh. So there's certain times it's going to be worse and going to be better with PSA, especially. That's who I usually use. So it's not like I'm going to send it in and it's going to be the perfect grade every time. I feel like they more often than not are pretty accurate, but occasionally I'll get one back and I'm like, I don't know how this happened. I usually feel worse about things that I think could get 10 and they get 9 versus like a 6. Because a lot of times a 6, there's got to be something. Like they didn't just put a 6 down. Occasionally you'll find like, oh, this got a 6 and it's perfect. But every time I get a 6 or a 7, I look it over. I find, oh, okay, this has like a damaged corner or it has like this micro bend you can't really see in the slab. But because I did reach out to PSA on one of mine one time. Or there was a guy that worked there and he's like, hey, let me look it up for you. And he's like, oh yeah, this has like this bend. If you look at it in the right light, it bends all the way down the car. And I'm like, oh, well, that's good to know. Like, but you can't see it because they don't tell you, unfortunately, which I think they are going to start doing on some of the higher end, but I usually do bulk subs. So this lower end stuff. But so the 9 to 10 is usually the most frustrating because you're like, I'm so close. But like a 6, you're like, there's something wrong with this card.
Yeah, because especially for things that you can't like really notice, this really goes to show how in depth a lot of these grading processes go. I do think it would be nice, for single like big cards if they tell you every single thing that they find, just so you know, all right, how did we get here? What to look out in the future? Because I'm sure they get plenty of messages from people yelling at them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Things.
I kind of understand where they're coming from because when I do, this is another reason I don't really like doing raw cards anymore. Is because I look at the cards and I'm like, oh, they said these were all near mint and they're like not even close. So like I'm looking at all the different things that are wrong with it and I'm like, hey, unfortunately these cards aren't near mint. They're like, why? I'm like, well, there's a lot of cards, so it's kind of hard to explain it all. So I get where they're coming from. That is like a lot there. That it's like, well, this has like this little corner ding, and you can't really see it. Like if it's in the sleeve, or like this scratching's kind of light on the back, but it's there. There's a lot of different things that are really hard to like just. Here, let me type out this email. Okay, so the top left corner has a slight so it's like
Mhm.
it's a lot to really do. But as a grading company, you think maybe they could do it. So
Yeah, it's kind of a wild thing too because growing up with Yu-Gi-Oh, I would get cards. I go to school with the deck in my pocket, just shove it right in there.
yeah,
All the playground Yu-Gi-Oh, throwing it on front porches and asphalt and
I like to
whatnot.
call
And
that nostalgic condition right
yes,
there.
nostalgic condition. Absolutely. Yes. The Konami released nostalgic set. Not really think about how the cards are printed. Like nowadays, you look at cards and you see like, oh, this edge is kind of over here. Maybe the foil's kind of weird. And it's just
Yeah.
fascinating kind of seeing the printing process of all of its interesting bits of it, I guess, for lack of better words, that you may not have noticed. Was that something that you noticed as you started doing more grading stuff? Like you got more of an eye for it, or like were you always keeping a lookout for that type of things like throughout your history of the game?
Definitely not at the beginning, because I was around at the beginning. I was doing the pocket stuff, the washing machine, all that different stuff, playground, no sleeves, rubber bands, all the things that you're like, oh no,
Hmm.
I did all that stuff. So, but once I got back and started watching the videos, a lot of people were doing PSA grading videos, and I was like really into those. Like, this is really cool. Like the process and like the return was always so much fun to watch. And so I'm like, I got to try this. I actually didn't start doing it. I remember I was like, I'm not going to PSA grade. Like, it's just a lot of work, and like I don't know if my cards are good enough. So I waited like a year to actually start doing it. But I was always really interested in the videos. I thought they were really cool. So I kind of, but from watching those videos, had an eye for like what centering was and like what you need to check out for like condition. And then of course, as you do it more and more, it becomes more and more like second nature. And it's really hard to explain a lot of times. Sometimes people will ask me like, hey, how do you tell like what's wrong with this card? And I'm like, what is the exact wording to get you to understand? Because like I just know, now. So now it's
Hmm.
like, how do I explain it to them where they'll get it and it'll make sense because they have no experience in this kind of stuff. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, okay, what was it like for me back then? Like, how did I first see this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a muscle. It's like working out, right? You gotta
Right.
work it out to really get built for like whatever you're doing, or any skill or any hobby. That stuff is important to have. And speaking of important to have, kind of circling back to another thing I was talking about earlier, I guess kind of a two-part question here. What is your favorite piece that you have, and what is your holy grail that you are still after?
Favorite piece I have. Some of my favorite cards. Been meaning to make a top 10 favorite cards video because I still haven't figured out exactly what my favorite cards are in terms of what I have. So I have, of course, my Petite Moth, which is my favorite card. One of my favorite cards. It's like a meme card from Meta Raiders. I have multiple PSA 10s, and I have one that Rhyme Style gave me. He signed, I got him to sign. He's like, "Why do you want me to sign?" I was like, "I have to remember this one's from you." So he signed the slab. First edition. I got a couple other ones. PSA actually randomly gave me when I was at Card Party last year. I walked up to their booth and they're like, "Hey, we got something for you." They had a 25th anniversary Petite Moth, Great Moth, and Larva Moth, or maybe it's Cocoon. I think it's Cocoon actually. All PSA 10 graded, and they're like, "Here
Wow.
you go." And I was like, "This is so cool." So those are really cool. That was an awesome gift because I don't even necessarily work with PSA. I just grade with them a lot. So that was really cool for them to give me those. And then for big moments on the channel, I love all the stuff that were like big videos on the channel that I pulled. So stuff like the Blue Eyes Shining Dragon. It got in PSA 9, but I don't really care about the grade. It's just about like that was a big card that we pulled. The Rainbow Dragon Gosher was a big one early on. I still have that. My Blue Eyes White Dragon first edition that I pulled last year. Was it late last year? When was that? I don't know. It was last year at some point. That was pulled on Whatnot for somebody. And then he was actually a Patreon member and he's like, "Hey, I want to give it to you." And I was like, "No." So I didn't let him. And then he was like, "All right, well, I'm selling my collection. So you want to buy it back?" So then I'm like, "Okay, I feel a little better about this." So I bought it back. So I have the PSA 9 Blue Eyes first edition. So that's another big one. And then of course Dragon Master Magia, I have to throw that in there. I got the PSA 9. Somebody did give me this one. I allowed it because I promised I was never gonna buy Magia until I got it. So when he gave it to me, I was like, well, this is a loophole, so we'll take it. So another huge moment in the channel. In terms of stuff that I actually want and don't have, I do want to get like a PSA 10 LOB Blue Eyes at some point, but they're just so expensive. So it would have to take me pulling one out of a random pack and then grading it or something. That would be really cool. I want to get the TP3 Needleworm PSA 10 at some point. There's only like 6 of them and they're impossible to find. Unfortunately, the guy who had just sold his walked by our booth at Collecticon recently, so I could have had that. So I was really close to getting it, but maybe at some point I'll get it. And then I'll need a Mech Chaser too, but that one's not as hard to get. So Mech Chaser PSA 10 to complete that ultra rare TP set. I do want to complete all the Ghost Rares. I'm getting really close to doing that. Ghost Rares for my Ghost Rare binder. So that's kind of the stuff I've been doing for years, and it's taking like a really long time to complete them. But I'm slowly piecing it away to completing those collections. And then I'll have to figure out what I want from that.
Yeah, collections are always a fun way. I have collections, not like PSA 10s or anything like that. One, I don't have the money. Two, I just like the sets. But it's always a fun goal to work towards, especially to buy with intentionality, which is just good, I think, life advice. For a lot of things. Of course, I dump so much money on frivolous Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. Like I did buy some platinum rare Petite Moths a couple weeks ago at my card shop. They can be played in Demizo TK.
Hey, what about Primite Petite Moth? That's coming up. Can't wait to try that on a Master Duel.
Maybe when that comes around, but Petite Moth, very very fun card. And I was curious, like when you say the LOB Blue Eyes PSA 10 is expensive, like how much are we talking here for those at home?
For glossy, I think they're around 25,000, and then the wavy is like 32.
Oh,
which I pulled the wavy just recently on was it? No, it was not on Whatnot. It was just a regular box break. We got an LOB first edition box, did a box break for the viewers, and somebody got the Blue Eyes. So I pulled 2 Blue Eyes in the last year. And somehow I'm still annoyed about this. PSA said it might have been altered or something. So like, here's another thing. They're not always perfect. So I even asked somebody I know, I'm like, hey, why didn't this get graded? And they said it looked like it had been trimmed or something. I'm like, it hadn't been trimmed. We just pulled it. Like, I know it's not trimmed. So I need to tell that guy just to resubmit it. Because a lot of times if they say that, they'll just grade it the next time. So it is a little annoying that happens, that it's like the first time they don't just actually send the card in and like grade it. Yeah, so he needs to try that again. But we did pull that, and I hope he gets it graded again because it looked pretty good. I mean, it's at least a 9. So if it gets a 10, then that guy's killing it, because I think the packs were super expensive in the break, but they were less than $1,000, like 800, or if he use the discounts, like 775. So if he gets like a 9, it's like 6,000. If he gets a 10, it's like 30,000. So that guy could do well. So I'm really crossing my fingers for him that he gets it, because you got to try it again. With that kind of level card, just pay $75 again. Unfortunately, that's a thing, but just try it.
Especially if you're pack opening on video. Like, it's on video. I have the evidence here.
Literally, like I sent the card out personally. I know that is the card.
How often do you send cards back to get regraded? Like, is it for those like really big moments you're like, no, I like this needs to be graded higher?
Yeah. It's basically only the highest event stuff, so I rarely do it. The last time I did it was 2 years ago. It actually went really well because it was like multiple years. I had plucked certain cards and I'm like, this is undergraded. I'm like, I got to try this again at some point. So I'll put it to the side. So I waited like 2 or 3 years of just gathering like 10 cards. And I'm like, these cards were incorrectly graded. Out of all the thousands I've graded, these are high enough end, and I think they were wrong about it, that I'm going to retry it. And I think I went 6 out of 10. So like 6 got upgraded. So I'm like, I feel like I was pretty right there, because like 6 out of the 10 did go from like 9 to 10. And they were all really big cards. And then the other 4, I'm like, well, they got 9 twice. So like, I could try it 3rd time, but I think the second time is really kind of, you try it twice, it gets 9 both times. It's probably pretty consistent. So, but then I usually like, if it's a big, like if it's like a difference between like 1,000 and 5,000, it's worth it just give it one more shot, just to make sure they got it right. And sometimes if you wait a couple years, like they might have changed up how they grade. Like that happens with grading companies. Like they'll be like, we've been a little too harsh recently. Let's dial it back a little bit. And they start giving out more 10s. So it's like, all right, time to send it back in. They don't actually tell you that, but you kind of notice as you go along.
Yeah, I'm sure people keep getting back 6s all the time. They might not want to use their service, which
Right. Yeah. Like
doesn't help
if you keep
anyone.
destroying us, we're not going to do it anymore. But you'd be surprised. Some people are like, you know what? I'm just going to keep sending in. I'm just going to keep doing it.
I mean, it's up to them to do so. Nothing's saying they can. It's not like the card gets a little stamp on it saying like you cannot resubmit this, because that would be kind of wild if
If you
they
start
do
stamping
that.
the cards, I would definitely not do that. If you start touching the card, I'm like, nope. All right, moving on. Let's go to SGC or something. I got to go to somewhere else.
Just start my own grading program.
Oh, people say that all the time. I would never
Yeah,
do that. That would be a
never.
disaster. No, people are already bad enough at the other ones. I don't want to be the target for that.
That is perfectly fair. So with all the sets that you open, which is your favorite ones that you've like opened, whether it's like due to like a reward to pull ratio or just you like the aesthetic of the set or it has some sort of more personal meaning behind it?
My favorite set is definitely Metal Raiders for all those reasons. First of all, amazing looking cards. Like they all have really great artwork. They're the original feel of Yu-Gi-Oh, where they have that like scary dark feeling to most of them, but then there's a couple like cute little things in there as well. There's like everything going for it. And the best part about it, I always say this, first of all, very anime focused. So a lot of people are going to remember a lot of the monsters in there. And it's not all in the secrets and ultras. It's not like all the high end. You don't have to open 12 packs to get an ultra to actually see something you recognize. The commons are insane. There's so many cool comments from the show. There's like Joey and Tristan's cards, like the whatever those guys are called. The two like
Swamp
man,
and
what are
Lava
they
Battle
called?
Guards.
Yeah, Swamp and Lava Battle Guards. Yeah, they're commons in there, so you can pull that. Petite Moth obviously is a favorite of mine. There's a lot of I've also have a lot of like little meme cards in Metal Raiders, like Pale Beast Ruxin34. That's in there. We've got Petite Moth. We've got Oni Tank Ruxin34 is not in there, but that's a good one. There's a lot of good stuff in the comments. And then the rares also have great stuff like Witch of the Black Forest, Sangan, Magician of Fate, just some classic cards you can pull in the rare slot. And then it's like even the super rares are good. You got the Gate Guardian pieces, you got Karibo. Basically every foil in there is amazing, except a couple of the ultras. But most of the ultras are absolutely insane. And then both amazing secret rares, Thousand Dragon and Gate Guardian. So at every rarity, you could pull something that you recognize or something cool. And then also the set is just has like a top end too that's really great, like Gate Guardian, Summon Skull, Beast Skull, Solemn Judgment, Mirror Force. All that stuff is really, really good and really exciting. So it by far is my favorite set. I think it's the most fun set to open for anybody who's like an anime fan, in my opinion. I mean, you might say LOB, but LOB is great. But after the hollows, it's like I get Pot of Greed as a rare. That's pretty cool. But do I want Darkfire Dragon as my rare? Not really. Do I want Fusionist? Not really. My commons, sure, a Tatsumi Giants from the first episode, but almost everything else is like, oh, Forest. Okay. How about Petite Angel? It's no Petite Moth, that's for sure. So, it's not amazing in the commons and rare section. So I think that's where Metal Raiders takes it over LOB.
Yeah, I definitely vibe with that. I mean, you can't see it, but I have a little Metal Raiders like ad print that's currently
Yeah.
layered up back there.
I see LOB. It's cut.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're not showing
like
Metal Raiders.
LOB, Magic Ruler, Pharaoh's Servant, and Metal Raiders.
That's awesome.
And I made a video a few years ago about my top 5 favorite sets. I think maybe only like number 5 would have changed, but Metal Raiders was like a very close number 2 to like number 1. Like that was the first pack.
What was your number 1?
I opened Feronic Guardian.
Feronic Guardian.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a big PGD fan.
All right, give me your. Is it because just of how many like cool? Is it to do with playability? Because there's so many good playable cards in that set, or you just like the Egyptian feel?
I think part of it's the Egyptian feel, but I had a magazine, Ghostmasters 2003 magazine, that was talking about like the upcoming Feronic Guardian cards. He had like all the like Japanese cards in there. It had this like kind of mysterious look and kind of cemented that like dark Egyptian like zombies and gravekeepers and invading tombs and all that stuff. So it really just kind of like stuck with me. I'm like a big fan of a lot of like Merrick's cards. You got cards like Visor Shock was in there. Just a lot of stuff like really gelled well with me for that. And it's kind of similar thing with Metal Raiders. Like the first pack I opened, seeing a lot of those similar cards. Like you mentioned. With cards like Gate Guardian and Black Skull and Dark Elf. It was always just like a ton of like nostalgia, but also like it really had a distinct vibe that a lot of sets did. Like I've opened LOB packs, way back when. Yeah, I had a similar reaction where I would open a pack and just get nothing but really weak vanillas. And just think, oh, this sucks. Like, yeah, sure. Now in context, I can look at, oh, Petite Angel. It was used in the OCG very briefly. But, like, as a kid, I open these packs and think, compare this to Metal Raiders. And it was such a large jump between the two sets. It has, like, nothing but my respect out there.
Yeah, and I think Feronic Guardian also is an underrated set, just because like the vibe you're talking about is really cool. There's a lot of like cool archetypes in there too. Like it started Gravekeepers and stuff like that, and there's just so many really good cards like at low rarity, like the Metamorphosis, Trap Dust Shoot, the Book of Moon, all that stuff like was popular and big for a long time. The only thing I wish Feronic Guardian had was a little bit more like iconic stuff at the top. Like I feel like it kills it in the common and rare section, and then the supers and ultras and secrets are like they're pretty cool, but they're like there's no like Gate Guardian or Blue Eyes, stuff like that. It's like the Hellpalmer and stuff like that, and Lava Golem. Those are both cool, but like they're not at the same level. So that would really bring that set up for me if they had it.
Yeah, Fushio Richie and Ring of Destruction. That was another one.
Ring is cool. I really like Ring.
I prefer the TCGR personally.
I do too. I do too. People are like, no, OCG. I'm like, no, the TCG is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's way flashier. I mean, quite since literally, it's just like the big red flames. It's like the grenades are going off, and I think that's
I definitely agree with you. I think Ring of Destruction art's one of my favorite. I know there's not a lot going on in the like background necessarily, but the secret rare pattern with it really hits. I'm a huge fan. I actually have never pulled that card in First Ed. That's one of the ones I would like to pull at some point. I pulled Lava Golem like 8 times, so I got to get Ring of Destruction at some point.
Like, do you have an end goal with like all these cards you're pulling, or is it just like it like this is like the business, or do you have like a certain stretch of things you're trying to like aim more than just like, all right, let's finish like Ghost Rare set, then this? Like, is there like an overarching picture you're trying to have with this?
Well, there's actually a fan of the channel actually has a spreadsheet of all the cards I pulled.
Wow.
And so of like in the original 11, I do want to pull every card at some point, and we're actually pretty close. Like I think I've pulled every card in Metal Raiders already. LOB, I need to pull. No, I completed it. I completed it when I opened the LOB Blue Eyes Wavy, the second one that I pulled recently. That was this year. I also pulled a Right Arm of the Forbidden One. That was the only Ultra I hadn't pulled. No, I didn't complete it. I pulled all the Ultras. I haven't pulled Guy the Dragon Champion Secret. And that one's super hard to pull because you have to have that specific box. So that one is going to be really hard to pull off. But I did finally pull that Ultra. So I'm at up to every card except the one in LOB. I pulled Metal Raiders. Magician's Force, I'm at like 35%, so I really got to open more of those, but those are so brutal to open, and they're super rare to get. So I do want to pull every card in the first 11 sets at some point, and a lot of them I'm at like 90-something%, but then when it goes to like Magician's Force, Dark Crisis, that stuff, it gets a little bit more difficult. I'm missing a lot of different cards, like Dark Magician Girl's a big one, but I'm also just missing like 7 other Ultras I've never pulled because I pulled Amazon Swordswoman like every time I do the box opening for some reason. I don't know why, but so there's still a lot to go in terms of that. But I do actually want to, at some point, have pulled everything on camera, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be like an awesome achievement to have. Yeah, and yeah, definitely Magician's Force would. I can imagine, given Dark Magician Girl and first set Dark Paladin, make that set a bit more.
Don't have either of those yet, so that would be amazing if I could. So far, I've only pulled Luster Dragon, Amazon of Swordswoman, and like one other one, but none of them are. I think it might be Chaos Command Magician, but none of the big stuff. I haven't pulled like Breaker yet. I haven't pulled Dark Paladin. I haven't pulled Dark Magician Girl. And then the Diffusion Wave Motion is going to be a pain too, because then you have to open a retail box, which nobody wants to touch for Magician's Force. So that one will probably be the hardest, honestly, because I don't think I'm ever opening a box like that. But who knows? Maybe I will. I did actually open one. No, I didn't. That was unlimited. Never mind. I take it back. It's got to be First Ed. It's got to be First Ed account.
First Ed only.
Yeah.
No unlimited. That's like you just.
Well, I will open it. It's just not going to count toward the goal. Like,
okay, sure.
I have pulled a Diffusion Wave Motion unlimited actually, but I just don't count those because We just don't open as much unlimited, but I've probably actually pulled a lot of unlimited as well.
So like when it comes to like reprint sets, like when we got the anniversary like LOB and Metal Raiders or the retro pack reprints, like how does that affect like your job at all?
Well, it's great actually because it gives me something to open that people are really excited about. So when those first came out, the LOB, I think they had five. They did 5 of the 6 sets from Legendary Collection. They didn't do Dark Crisis except in the Legendary Collection reprint, so they didn't have the boxes for some reason. Still don't know why. So now Dark Crisis 25th anniversary cards are like really expensive. If you look at those up on TCG Player, it's really funny. You'll look up like a super rare and it's like $9. Like why? Because there's none of them on the market. Well, when those other 5 came out, I was like, let's just complete all the sets. So I ended up opening, I think I did every day in a row completing the set. And it didn't take that much. It's like 8 boxes or 9 boxes, which if you do it old school, you know, that's really expensive. But for this, it was brand new. They were like 50, 60, $70 a box, whatever it was. So I just completed all the sets in a row. And then with Retro Pack, at first I was a little like, I don't know if I like this reprint because it's like reprinting an original that doesn't have first edition, so it's going to be kind of weird. Is it going to hurt the old stuff? But then I opened it and I was like, this is way too fun to like care about. Like this, I love this set, like all old school stuff. And everybody was pumped about the set. I did a video where with Rhyme where we did the duel afterwards, and dueling with that set was actually a blast too, because it was just like Raigeki, Monster Reborn, you know, just like old school, like straight up playground stuff. So I've loved the reprints actually. I didn't think a couple years ago, if you told me I was going to love reprinting everything, I would be like, no way. I don't want them to reprint everything. But now I'm like, it's like kind of fun. Like when they bring out this old stuff, it's just like a good time.
Yeah, people wonder why Konami keeps printing this kind of stuff. Well, people like them and they sell, and it's a lot of fun.
Right.
Because I picked up a few boxes, and my friends and I would play, like a draft kind of format thing with like LOB and actually was it LOB? We definitely picked up Metal Raiders. I think it was Metal Raiders and Pharaoh's Servant were like the 2 we picked up.
That's probably better than LOB, yeah.
Yes, because I think we were thinking about picking up LOB, then we thought, wait, there's like very little cards in there. Like if someone gets Raigeki,
you won't use anything
LOB,
except Pot of Greed, Monster Reborn, Raigeki, and like 2 other cards.
Yes. So we found the 2 sets that would see more play. And I do kind of wish they did more of the sets. Honestly, not even just like DM, but even like GX stuff would be fun. God forbid Strike a Neos.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's happening unless we can get Raveactyl, baby.
I did have a question via my Discord. People on there ask, how did you get the interview with Raveactyl?
How did I get the interview with Greg, the Raveactyl creator? Well, it was not that complicated actually. All that Air Neo stuff blew up that day, and then somebody, I don't remember who it was, found out who he was or like what his name was from that lawsuit, and I was like, well, let's just see about his Instagram. So I looked up his Instagram, popped up, I sent him a message, and I'm like, he's not going to answer this, but I don't know. So hey, I'm sure you've heard about all this craziness happened. Hey, you want to do an interview with me? Talk about, your character and like what happened with Konami and stuff like that. And the account answered. It wasn't him at first. It was like his assistant or something. He's like, oh yeah, I think he would like that, but he's on his way back like from like wherever he was. So I'm like, okay, cool. So then it just worked out like very easily. Like I didn't have to do anything crazy. I just reached out to his Instagram.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, because I made a video like, I don't know, it was last year or a few months ago, Time is a Blur, on like my 2 cents on the whole Air Neos thing. Yeah. And it was only like 4 months or so later, and it's like, hey, here's what seemingly happened. And like I thought it was super cool that information basically got out, regardless of what people think of the situation. But it's cool that the guy is, he seems like a chill dude. He commented on the video I made about it. That he's open for stuff like that is really awesome.
Yeah, it was cool to have him on. I didn't expect it, obviously, but I had just made my video about the speculation and stuff too, pretty recently before that. So whenever that came out, I was like, this seems a little suspicious that this just came out. But I looked at it, I was like, oh, this seems legit. So then I got to talk to him. And I was really glad I got to show him on camera just so, because there was a lot of negativity toward him. I could tell, like people were just assuming that he was like in it for the money. He was like trying to make sure they couldn't have their Air Neos reprint or whatever. And I was glad to kind of show that that wasn't really what he was about. And though some people aren't going to believe that, obviously they're going to be like, no, actually he wanted 70 million. So that means that he's all about the money and all this different stuff. And you believe whatever you want to believe. But after talking to him, I'm like, well, I feel like this guy, a lot of people are going to see this guy and be like, yeah, this guy's legit. He just wanted his Raveactyl character to be protected and stuff like that. So I was glad that I got to show that at least, so people could at least make an informed opinion versus like a assumption opinion, which is what everybody else was doing before that.
Yeah, informed opinions, all for that. So yeah, this has been fun, but I have one final question for you.
Okay.
And that is, what is Yu-Gi-Oh to you?
Wow, this sounds deep, honestly.
Save
What
the
is
best for last.
Yu-Gi-Oh is a lot, man. It's a lot. So I mean, as you can see, we got all the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff back here, but it is a hobby that turned into a job that's still a hobby, turned into just a lot of great relationships that I get to meet people like yourself. I get to talk to a lot of people. It's a way to connect with other people that either remember it from back in the day or are currently in the hobby. So it's meant a lot of different things for me. And over the last, I mean, especially since 2019, it's really been like a lot of my life. So it's kind of crazy how much Yu-Gi-Oh has like taken over my life versus like, if you told me this in 2017 before I started my channel, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I remember Yu-Gi-Oh. How's that going to work? How am I going to be all in Yu-Gi-Oh? I don't even get that, So it's very great. It's a great thing. And I really, Konami, just don't mess it up. All right, come on, keep it going. So we're all relying on you over here.
Yeah, it's great. Hopefully, stay in the Yu-Gi-Oh space for years to come, as sure a lot of us will. And, typically people who leave for a bit will inevitably come back.
Of course, that's what they do.
It is a terrible addiction, but there are worse things to be addicted to. That's what gets me to sleep at night.
Yes, you're like, oh, it could be a lot worse. So that's all I'm going to say. It could be a lot worse.
So, yeah, thank you for coming on. Do you have any shout outs or any projects that you're currently working on you want to share to the Janjoverse?
Thank you for having me, first of all, and shout out to all the people watching. Thank you guys for watching and spending almost an hour with us, which is very exciting. And you can check me out, Ruxin34.com is my website, and Ruxin34 everywhere on social media. So that's it.
All right. Thank you for joining, and I see all you lovely viewers next time. Have a wonderful day, and duel on, passionate duelist.
Yes, let's do it.